Hey everyone, it's been a couple of weeks since my last video, but I'm back with another short devotion for you to follow along with your family. Today, I'm thinking about the word legacy. What is a legacy? If you look it up in the dictionary, you might find that legacy means something that is handed down from the past. And that's true, but the word legacy is often used a little bit more specifically. When you leave a legacy, you're leaving behind a reputation that reflects on those who come after you. For example, when I die, I hope that my life and my actions will allow my children to remember me with love, and then they will be encouraged to live their lives full of love for others. In other words, I hope I will leave my children a good legacy that they will continue to build for future generations. Proverbs 13:22 says, "The good leave an inheritance to their children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous." Let me translate this verse a little bit. A good person leaves an inheritance for future generations. An inheritance is kind of like a legacy. It can include material things like money or property, or it can simply mean a good reputation, a history of doing good for others. But a sinner who has gained his wealth by treating others badly will have his inheritance or his legacy taken away from him. I'm thinking about legacies today because a little over a week ago, the hit musical Hamilton just released on Disney Plus, and I got to watch it for the first time and immediately I loved it. I can see why it was such a smash hit on Broadway. But it didn't take long for people to begin criticizing the musical for how it portrays some of our founding fathers as heroes, even when most of them were slave owners, and they chose not to deal with the problem of slavery at the very beginning of our country. Growing up in school, I was always taught to hold a high respect for George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, and those others of the founding fathers because they successfully led 13 colonies to revolution against the most powerful empire the world had ever seen, and they created a new nation. I try to imagine how complicated it must have been once the British left America and then these men had to build something new from scratch. New laws, new forms of government, and to be honest, they weren't always successful, but it was really complicated. And what you and I take for granted today, they had to experiment and evaluate and rework and on and on and on. But recent events are causing us to look again at the legacies of our founding fathers. The racial injustice that we are wrestling with today is causing us to look again at these men who, yes, held slaves and therefore participated in our country's greatest failure. That is, a failure to fight against this problem from the very beginning. I really wish that I had a good answer to this question for you. But the truth is, I'm wrestling with it myself. I believe that slavery is an evil and dehumanizing practice, and that we have to fight against it because today there are actually more slaves in the world, if you can believe it, than there have ever been before. But even though our founding fathers did hold slaves, and even though they chose not to deal with the slavery issue when they began to create the United States of America, I'm not yet ready to completely throw away their legacies as important people who achieved something extraordinary, something that we can all benefit from today, and we do benefit. I think it's important for us to remember that no one is perfect, not even the heroes of our history. Just like you and me, they were human beings. They made good choices and they made bad choices. They caused great things to happen, but they also caused terrible things to happen. It's hard whenever we put a human being up on a pedestal because we're almost always disappointed when we learn something about that person that leaves a stain on their legacy. And for you and me today, this is an important lesson because it encourages us to live as if we're building our legacies right now. What kind of legacy do you want to leave your children and their children and so on? How will you be remembered? You can actually influence the answer to that question right now. So I invite you to read Proverbs 13:22 with your family. and then talk about some ways that you can begin building a good legacy that you can one day leave for the future. Until next time.